feel free to share what you've experienced, sir.
My first time was can I say where they were?
Absolutely, yeah.
Was in Yankee Springs, Michigan. We were coon hunting. I was just a child. I can't tell you exactly how old, but it's possible I was 5 or 6 years old. The dogs took off and chased a deer, which they weren't supposed to do. So my grandfather set us on a tree that had been broken down to wait there while he went and got the dogs because it was a swampy area. Where we had parked, and all around us was a hill that you could see, the outline of trees and such. And my brother that was with me was getting a little bit nervous about something, and I pointed up the hill and said, "Well, Grandpa's just standing right there." And he goes, "No, that's not Grandpa." And my grandfather left in the opposite direction and came back up the hill from the opposite direction. And although he was a big man, this thing was wide and big. I couldn't tell you exactly now, but I've always remembered it. And when we talked about it the next day, my grandfather mentioned that I said it felt like being in the Twilight Zone because of seeing him walk up after I just saw him in the opposite direction about 100 yards. My second two incidences were in Athens, Michigan. The first one, I was sitting indoors and I heard the Ohio type yell in the woods that were beyond the acreage in my backyard. I could hear it indoors. My wife come running in the house scared. My neighbor went in the house and called me and said, "Did you hear that?" And I said, "Yes, I even heard it indoors." It was May 27th, about right around, I would say, maybe 2012. An exact week later, I was the one outdoors. We had projects going on because we had just bought the house. I was the one outdoors. And the same thing happened from this wooded area. A friend of mine came later in the afternoon and I told him about it, and he goes, "Let's go check it out." And when we got into the woods, there were footprints. I called the BFRO who was in charge of it in Michigan. He came to my house and found other evidence of twisted trees and everything else that were actually in my yard. We just had a lot of strange things happen in that Athens area that, that there was no explanation other than Bigfoot.
How close do you think it was getting to your house?
I think it was coming up to, I had a giant building, 72 by 40 brick building that was 2 stories tall in back where I built cars and worked on things. I think it was coming to the back of that building, which was maybe 40, 50 steps from the house. And I believe it was coming, more than one would come across the street, the woods that lined the road, because we'd hear them knocking back and forth at nighttime. My wife would wake up to it and shake me and say, "Are you listening to that?" And of course, in summertime, we'd have the windows open, and I'd pay a lot of attention to it because it was like one was signaling to the other. You could tell they were quite a distance away from each other.
Do you know if, hold on, sorry. Do you know if your neighbors were experiencing anything as well?
Yes, they were hearing stuff. Like I said, one of the first times when my wife had heard it, my neighbor was out there and he heard it and called me and asked me if I heard it. Me being in the house, I heard it so plain and so loud, it was almost like you could feel it, especially at
Gotcha.
the end of the call. At the end of the call, it got so deep and guttural that it kind of felt it through the air. And my wife wouldn't get scared or think Bigfoot automatically whatsoever, but she come running in the house and said, "What do you think that was?" And I said, "What did it sound like to you?" And the first words that come out of her mouth were Bigfoot. And she wouldn't be someone that would jump to that conclusion.
Based on what you've experienced over the years, how would you describe what Bigfoot is?
I I really I don't believe they're extraterrestrial like I read and hear people's opinion of. I think they're just an unknown, maybe ape, maybe an ape and human mixed.
Mm.
I don't know because the size just is what keeps my mind working. The size of them. Um, Having to go back so many thousands of years for Gigantopithecus to be to have been alive. I don't believe they could have hid for that long, but now it seems they ain't even hiding. Either that
That's the
or
thing.
AI is taken over, and you can't believe none of it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff that you're seeing out there today is fake because it's AI, but I'm also saying that we're either at the point where there's a ton of encounters happening, or people are just at the point where they don't care and they're sharing what they've experienced, which I think is great. So it's a very interesting time period to live in. But thank you so much for coming up and sharing what you experienced up there in Michigan.
Well, I just hope that in my lifetime they do find the correct answer. It's just one of the things I even pray to God about, that I do find out the truth during my lifetime. And I just wanted to share that with you. And thank you. I watch you on here all the time.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I hope you are able to stick around. Thank you.
God bless you. I'll be here.
You too. That's good stuff. Good stuff. Good first accounts from Michigan. Thank you, Slinger. All right. Hey, Ronald, how's it going?
I'm good. How you doing tonight?
Hey, doing great.
I don't know if it's much of a story. To be honest with you, I'm not sure if it's even a Bigfoot story.
Sure.
But it was something that was kind of stuck in my mind for quite a while. So this happened. You mind if I just start it right away?
Go
Um,
right ahead.
this happened. I want to say about it's going on 3 years ago. Between 2 and 3 years ago, my one of my older brothers passed away, and I'm in Wisconsin, and I live in Waukesha, Wisconsin, and my brother was living up in the Indian reservation in Minocqua, which is about a 4-hour drive up north from Waukesha, Wisconsin. So it's a real wooded area, heavily wooded, and we were up there, me, my wife, my three boys, and we met up with a couple friends of the family who were going up for his funeral. We actually had to do a thing where we're Mexican American, but his girlfriend was Native, and when my brother passed away, they had kids together. they had a native funeral for him. That's what he wanted. That was his last request. And there's a whole ritual that goes with it. That's kind of cool. I won't go into great detail for it, but basically they start a fire in front of the home and you got to keep it going. That's why we went up there. I had promised my brother before he passed away that we would keep the fire burning for like 3 days. And it's cold up there, extremely cold. So when we went up there, we rented out a place right outside of the Indian reservation, which is Lac de Flambeau. So I want to say it was in the Minocqua area. We showed up there. The days are shorter up here in the cold. This was, geez, I should know this. I apologize, but I'm trying to remember the date. Let me look at. I actually got a photo of his on my wall here. Well, anyways, this was at the end of winter, but it was still extremely cold. And we rented out a place, like I said, and we were staying out there. And one of the evenings that we came back after a lot of the rituals and stuff that we did, we were all pretty tired. And we went back to the place, the cottage that we were staying at. And it was out there. All I remember, it's by a lake, but we never really got any time to spend there other than because we were there for my brother's funeral. And like I said, we were there with a couple friends. They were in a cottage next to us, and my wife's a smoker. Well, I'm a smoker too, but I hadn't gone out with them. They went out in the back deck. Her and a friend of ours that was there. This was at night. It was pitch black. And we were sitting in the living room watching a movie, and they came just busting in the door they were just pale white. And they swore they heard this animal. And there's a lot of bear up there, black bear. You see them every now and then or whatever, but they swore up and down this was not a bear. This was sounded like a very large animal that kind of made like a roaring yell sound. That's the best they could explain it. And then they said that it sounded like when they heard it hit the water because there was a lake down below, but you couldn't see it at night. We went and looked the next day, but there was still snow on the ground and stuff, so we didn't go all the way down by the lake. But it was quite a ways. I'd say maybe like 100 yards. But like I said, at night they're out there smoking. You can't see anything; it's pitch black. But they said that they heard the thing, like whatever it was, they believe jumped in the water or it threw something in the water that was extremely large because the splash was really loud. And that's pretty much the story, the way I remember it. But it had us all thinking quite a bit.
Wow. That's pretty cool. I don't hear a lot from northern Wisconsin, so that is great to hear that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Have a good night.
You too, sir. Hi there. How are you?
Yate say, we say in our language.
Oh. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm Chiwakawa Apache.
Oh, pleasure to meet you, sir.
My brother.
All right. Well, feel free to share what you would like to today, sir.
In our language, I said earlier, yate say. That means hello and goodbye. But my story goes, I had a friend of mine. I was hunting in Colorado. I'm a big-time Native American hunter. And I was hunting elk. Me and my son, we had ATVs, we had trailers. We had my old antique, it's called canvas. It's made out of Denver Canvas Tent Company. I'm not getting sponsorship, so just that off right off the bat. But we were hunting up there, and we were in the Salida area. It's by going up towards Bonanza. If you go on Colorado map, you go towards Salida. Further up, there's nothing but a Sasquatch area. That's a native language, Sasquatch. We were up hunting, My buddy of mine came down from Ohio. He brought his girlfriend and her son, and we were hunting. We went scouting the day before we got there, before the hunting season opened. So we went scouting, and we were at 12,500 feet on the mountains. As natives as we are, I took him to a pristine spot where I knew the elk were. They say in our language, when it's dry, you go high. When there's snow, you go low. That's just our way. So we were hunting. We came back. There was a lot of hunters. Believe me, that's a very predominant big bull hunt. So we were made up camp. I had a hunter's tent. We had food going. I was cooking some of my famous oyster soup, and I think that's what brought him in. Because my friend Dave, he's from Ohio. He's a metal salesman for educational purposes.
Right.
But he was up there, and he brought his Desert Storm. So I was cooking. We were enjoying. Camp was going. 5 of us, not one of us, 5. When we saw the bushes move 8 to 9 feet high, at the very outskirts, I had some combing lamps. I had a shower / bathroom facility built out towards there was a little creek running behind us. But these bushes were moving, and he freaked out. I told Dave, hey, no, be cool. I'm native to these lands. I said to him, he just wants to know what he smells. The food I was cooking was oysters. Oysters carry if you're cooking oysters out in the open. And he came through. We saw the bushes, but the sound, when I watched this one program on YouTube, these gentlemen are in the very back skirts of Alaska. The same thing that he said is the same thing I said. The bass, the sound of the grunt resonates through your body. It's not what you normally hear from deer, elk, moose, bear, or mountain lion. It's totally different. As native people, we know these hairy creatures. We call them brothers from the mountains. So he came to visit. I told him, chill out. We're not going to do nothing. He's not bothering us. He just wanted to say hi by his movement. And we had to accept it. And I said, just leave it alone. But my friend Dave pulled out that big Israeli. And I started laughing. I told him, hey, calm down, Dave. He comes in peace. He's not coming to bother us. He enjoys the food I was cooking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. That is wild. My goodness. Have you been fortunate enough to have any other experiences out there?
That was my first ever experience. But I always watch these programs. And here's something that you have to understand. I'm not saying it out of disrespect. I'm saying it out of knowledge. Our
Right.
people were basically friends with these creatures. We give them gifts. We would give. They were called the protectors of the forest. Where you got to understand, if you're not from these lands, you will not understand it. They've been present to our people for thousands of years. And what they're trying to portray in these channels and all these YouTube channels, you have to have the vibration, the proper vibration to these lands to communicate with these creatures. They don't understand our language, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. How does one do that?
You can't.
You can't.
You can't. It's impossible. They've known us for thousands of years, us, our people, native people being to these lands. They understood us. We understood them. We respected them. They respected us. And now they're making millions of dollars where people are donating money and so forth and so on, where something they are not aware of because they're not people from these lands. You have to understand that. That's clearly stated. If you're from Russia, you're from Europe, or wherever you come from, That's your lands. These are my native lands. We know these stories throughout history. Many tribes have had stories of these people, the hairy creatures of the mountains. And that's where I think to get down to the nitty gritty, if you really want a real authentic video or true connection to these lands, to communicate with these people, it's our people. But no one's asked us yet.
So let me make sure I get this right. So in order to communicate correctly, really one needs to go um, through an individual as yourself,
As our native people to these lands, yes.
right? So how would one do that?
Like I said, it's a you're asking a question that's very difficult.
I get it. Yeah.
I can say this. When I was up there and I felt that presence, the vibration that it was sending out to me, I felt that peace. My friend Dave felt otherwise. He's not from these lands. His ancestors came from somewhere else. Understand our stories. Look them up. That's all I can say. You call me a liar.
I see it. I
You
see
can
it.
call me a liar if you want, but look them up. These are our stories. No one asked us. But yet you have these people spinning off all kinds of this and that, something or another, and making money. Donate. We'll go research. They feel the vibration from outsiders as well. Remember, thousands of years our people have been here. We felt that same vibration, didn't understand the lingo, and yet it cost us our land. We are here. We're still here. We don't hate you. We just want you to be fair. That's all I'm
I
after.
get you. I get it. I get it. Wow. That's some really fascinating stuff to think about. Thank you so much for sharing your viewpoint on things. I some of my most favorite conversations have been with, I've talked to individuals from the Tule River Reservation, from
That's in
Lakota.
Cali. That's in Cali, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. But just the things you learn from those conversations are just incredible. So thank you so much.
It's out of respect. In
Mhm.
our language,
Absolutely.
we would say yatese. That means hello and goodbye. There's no such thing as I'll see you later. But anyway, Chiwakawa Apache. I'm a native artist in Cheyenne, Wyoming. With all the disturbance and all the vibrations of going sideways with this earth, wars and W's. Let's just say that for educational purposes.
Yeah.
All these W's are circling our people. This is not what we signed up for. And I hate to bring politics, but politics is crooked. That's all I can say. And
I hear you. I hear it.
it's never been straight for us since day one, since they came off the Mayflower. Those pilgrims were very nice to us. And we found that the end result after the fact. But when it comes to Bigfoot, ask us if we're willing to speak up on these special creatures that were sent here to coexist with us, but in the shadows, so to speak. If we were up in the mountains in summertime, we would run across them because they, just like us, they migrate. The food, the elk, and the deer, they come down because of the snow, the level of snow, so they have to come down. And they follow them because that's what their, food is. And it's been a known fact that every time you go through these territories throughout the United States, there's always called a trail, a game trail. Learn the game trail. As Native people, we learned for thousands of years. We know where the buffalo were coming, the elk, the deer, the moose, and so forth and so on, until we were disturbed on our piece of our land. And then that was taken from us by the annihilation of millions of buffalo, our mainstay of food. If you can look at the Serengeti back in Africa, that was existing here. The elk used to be in the open fields. The moose, the black bear, the grizzly. Look at Alaska. There's not many trees, but what's roaming there? Exactly what was roaming here: the elk, the wolves, the black bear, the grizzly, all these animals, the buffalo, and then on top of that, you go further, the giant migration of the, not antelope, but what are they called? The not reindeer.
Caribou.
Caribou. There you go. That is our people's. We knew the cycle of migration, and we would store our food during summertime or winter because that's the coldest. They would come through. We would take what we need to last us through winter. So these are the simple facts. They're not something that's scientific or somebody writing on a piece of paper. These are facts. These animals would migrate, and our people would intercept them in these migrations and have food for winter. The United States was no different.
Right.
But when it comes to Bigfoot, that's sacred. It's important to us. These are the caretakers of the woods. And we named them that, and they were like the hairy brothers, so to speak. So you don't get a lot of information from our people because we're kind of like, let's just say, in left field, don't want to speak about it. But there's many stories, if you talk to our native people, about the hairy brothers that live in the mountains. And they're here. And now you guys are seeing just smidgets of evidence, but nobody knows what truly evidence that's occurred. We have it in our stories. We have it.
Fascinating. Well, thank you for coming up. I appreciate you sharing. I think this will steer people in the right direction. But thank you so much for coming up, sir.
You have to respect it. This is not something that's a sideshow. You have to respect what Creator gave us. He gave us protectors, just like and I hate to get into politics. You know how crooked that is. What everything that's going on in this atmosphere. United States, Turtle Island, the atrocities throughout years, and I hate to, like I said, I don't want to go into that. But as a Native American to these lands, it's unfortunate that greed is the root of all evil. And when they're chopping all these trees down around, like just say Brazil, Colombia, all these where the indigenous people live, they're tearing down all these forests. That is the breath of this earth. That cleans the air that we all breathe. Is these jungles and these places that we call uninhabitable places. That's our lung to this earth. And when people don't understand what we understand as Native people, when it comes to our brother in the mountains, the hairy brother, they make a circus out of it. It's unfortunate.
So it's a lot to learn. It's a lot to learn, but it's a lot to think about as well. But I appreciate you coming up. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, my friend. I come in peace. I hope people understand what I'm saying. It's simple. You don't need science. You need to understand that this vibration this earth is putting off, it's going to be the end of all of us. Greed is controlling everything throughout this country and this world. We never were brought up that way. We were brought up to live coexistent with this land, the animals that the Creator gave us. And it says in their Bible, and I hate to say this, everything I have for you is there. The fruits, the many vegetables, and the healing purposes of all these plants that He gave us to heal ourselves. But see, people don't think that way. In today's world, they think of simplicity in big pharma theory. take a pill, headache goes away. It's out there. It's growing in these lands. Our people knew of this. It heals our body. Everything that comes from this earth was given to all of us. But see, what amazes people is the extraordinary stuff that happens on this earth. Something they have no clue of or no existence or connection to it, if you know what I mean.
Uh-huh.
Our people were connected. So if you look at the petroglyphs of throughout the United States, you see a big hairy thing with a light on it.
Yes.
That is Bigfoot.
Absolutely.
It's a being that it's a being that we ourselves try to understand, but there's a purpose. It's here for a reason. Maybe it's here to share our end, to tell us a story if we can communicate with it properly. Humans are bad people. They always hate each other because of greed, anger, or even just blindfolded, not knowing what direction is up or down. It's sad that we have to continue living this way in this country of my people, my lands, under all this chaos that's going on today. It's going to be the end of all of us. No one's safe. Because when the time comes, where are you going to hide? That is all I have to say. I'm Ray Blackbear, Chiwakawa Apache. I come in peace. I hope you understand what I try to say in my message, not to disrespect. Listen to the words. Why are humans always hating other humans? For what reason? Creator sent us here to live on this land, to be free people. Are we really free? That is all I have to say.
A great talk. Great talk. Thank you. Thank you so much. We hope to hear again from you someday, hopefully. Thank you for coming up, sir. Wow, that was really special, guys. That was a special chat. My goodness, there's a lot to take away from that. Hope. Hey, Nitro, how are you?
Hey, not too bad. How about yourself?
Hey, good. Feel free to share what you've experienced out there in the PNW.
Okay. Yeah, I lived up in the Olympic National Park in the Pacific Northwest, the rainforest, and I had several incidences. The one though that was the most striking, where I got a very good, clear view of a Bigfoot, was I'd worked at a shipyard. I was building boats, and I'd worked a late shift, and I was headed home after getting some dinner, and the road went along a swamp. There's a harbor on one side and a deep wooded area off to the left, to the south, and I was going west, going back toward the coast, toward where I was living, right on the beach there, and the road turned. It was almost midnight. It was close to midnight, and it was dark. And I had a pickup with these KC lights across the top. They used to be popular back. They spotlights across the roll bar. It's kind of an off-road truck. And so I was out on that highway by myself, just a 2-lane, going along between the harbor there. There was a swamp there off between the road and the harbor. So I was going along toward the coast and had my big KC lights on, trying to light it up. It's kind of drizzly. And the road turned just a little bit to the left, and as I'm coming up, I saw on the shoulder, or what I thought was on the shoulder, what I thought was a hunter, a bow hunter in a ghillie suit. And because that was a deep swamp, deep wilderness area, it was bow season. It was close to November, and in that part of the country, it was bow season at the time. And I thought Well, and a bow hunter had gotten lost and finally found his way out to the highway, and here he's walking up the road trying to make his way back to town or get somebody to pick him up in a ghillie suit. That was my first thought when I saw it up ahead a little ways, kind of beside the road. But I got up close to it and I had all those lights on, and I realized that's not somebody standing on the shoulder, because the shoulder of the road drops down into that swamp about maybe 10 foot or more. And he wasn't standing on the road. He was standing down the bank, but he was so tall that he was probably his head is 5 or 6 foot off the road. But so I'm guessing he's probably every bit he had to have been close to 8 to 10 foot tall from how far down the bank, the shoulder he was standing. And it looked just like a dude in a ghillie suit, just, of course it was at night, so I didn't see a lot of details, but he was standing there staring at me. And when I saw it, it took me a minute to register what I was looking at, because it's like I saw it, but I didn't believe it. It was so out of what I was expecting to see. And so I slowed down, but when I realized it was not a hunter needing help, I got this sense of fear that come over me. That thing scared me to death. And I went on past it about 20, 30 feet up the road. It gave me time to get armed, and spun around and tried to catch it in my lights again. I wanted to see it, but I didn't want to see it again without feeling like I could protect myself in some way. That thing, it was huge, scared me to death. And but I never saw it. By the time I got turned around, it'd gone. But I saw it. I mean, the Indians all had stories, and I had hunting buddies that had stories, and I always just kind of wrote it off as a legend or just campfire stories, But man, that night I saw it. I mean, in full spotlight, staring back at me. I'm a believer whether I want to be or not now. But it was something. Never forgot it.
Wow.
But it was standing there. That was about 11 o'clock. I'm thinking he was probably hunting in that swamp, and was trying to get up into the mountains, up the wooded area across the road. And I happened to catch him in my spotlights there. But yeah, that was something else. It was
that is wild.
I wish now, they got the cameras on the dash you can put on your. Now I wish I'd have had that, because I would have had it in full spotlights, and that'd have been something to have. But I've heard them since then. I've spent a lot of time in the wilderness, and I'd heard them plenty of times, but I didn't know what the noise was. In the woods, you hear lots of things, and normally you understand what it is. But they do like a knocking on a tree, and they make different noises, and there's a certain yowl that they make. And I'd heard that knocking, 4 or 5 times. I didn't know what it was. I just figured somebody's out chopping a tree down. But I never, one time I tried to find the fella doing the chopping, and I never could find him. And it didn't click till years later. I started learning when I had my encounter, and I started doing an investigation, like, what in the world, these things are real, Then I heard about the knocking, like, well, that's what I heard. So I guess I've had several experiences with them, but that night in the spotlights on the truck, that was that kind of made a believer out of me, whether I wanted to be or not, But,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
What year did you say that was?
Oh, that'd have been 99.
Okay, gotcha.
November.
Do you feel comfortable sharing the general area, or just leave it to Olympic National Park area?
I'm fine with that. That was in Grays Harbor. I was
Oh
traveling.
yeah, dude.
Grays Harbor. I was
Yeah.
traveling from Aberdeen to Westport, where I was living, and that Grays Harbor is full of it, evidently.
Oh, 100%. I mean, there's so much activity in Grays Harbor. It is wild.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I don't know if this is something you want to use or if it means much to you, but to me, I was raised in an environment where, I don't know, maybe I'm saying too much, but I know a lot of people that had some spiritual problems, if you make sense. demonic issues. And there's a
Oh, okay.
type of fear when you're in the presence or experiencing having a demonic experience. It's like a certain strain of fear that is unique to that type of situation. And that's what hit me when I saw him. And I had that same, I don't know how else to say it, flavor, type of fear when I saw him. And so I don't know. I've always wondered maybe there's some kind of connection, but I don't know. You know, maybe it's just responding to something I don't understand, and that's how I responded. So maybe just on my part. I don't know if that was a result of the type of influence I was falling under, or just my knee-jerk reaction to the unknown, you know.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
So that was interesting to me. I've never really sorted through that entirely, but
A question for you, just
yeah.
in case you know anything, because you're from that area. Have you heard of anything up by the Lake Cushman area?
Cushman?
Yeah.
I didn't spend too much time around Cushman. I have a similar story, and I don't know. It was my grandfather, if you want to hear it, if you got a moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, he was hunting up, or he was fishing up north. Oh, what's the name of that lake? I was just south of Tohola, the res up there. And I can't remember the name of that lake. But anyway, he was out there fishing. It got dark, and he loaded his stuff and backed his truck in the small parking lot to try and get to go home. And he accidentally backed the tires of his pickup off the parking lot there. And so here he's out in the middle of nowhere, stuck. He couldn't get, the tire started spinning out. He was stuck. So he's trying to figure out how to get out of there. And while he's back there with a shovel trying to do something, whatever he could, he said some fella come out of the woods, and he was huge. He was like 7 foot tall, just a giant of a man. But it was dark, so he couldn't see him real clearly. I mean, it's pitch black. The guy never went around the front of the truck, so it was kind of by the light of the taillights of the pickup. And the guy just walked out of the woods, great big. He said he was built like an ape, but it was a man. And he just thought it was some kind of a hermit or something. Sometimes you get people who they're kind of odd, or they move out in the woods and be a hermit. So they don't fit into society, and that they're more comfortable there. So he assumed that's the sort of fella it was. He never said a word to him, walked out, just leaned up against the back of his truck and shoved it a foot or two forward to get him up on the solid, and turned around and walked back in the woods and never said a word to him.
No way.
So that would have been just south of Tohola, up on the res there. So looking back, I wondered if it wasn't a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot or whatever you want to call it, you know. But
yeah, I mean, it would make sense. But yeah, so that's up on the Quinault Reservation. Yeah.
Yeah, been right around there.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Wow. I appreciate you coming up and sharing your encounter and your story and what you've heard. And, it's such a cool area. I mean, there's so much that happens up in that area, but I appreciate you coming up, Nitro.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you're welcome. I just kind of stumbled across your site and thought I'd share with you. And I'm glad I got to tell somebody, I guess. I don't tell a whole lot of folks. I think you're nuts, you know, but I thought I was nuts till I saw it myself. So maybe, you know, I don't know what to think now, but
You're not nuts, man. You're just in a special club of people. So
I guess.
I hope you're able to hang out and for a little bit. But you have a good one, sir.
All right, you too. Thank you. Goodbye.
Good stuff, man. Oh my goodness, those are some good accounts from the Pacific Northwest. Hi there. How's it going?
Good. How's it going with you?
Hey, doing good. Feel free to share what you've come up to share today.
I live in Canada. I spend most of my time fishing and hunting. And I've come across my first experience. I was 16. I was out on a date. I was near Blind River, Ontario, northern Ontario. And that was before it was built up. And me and my girlfriend, we were parked, just eating some submarines. And then I got out to go to the washroom, come back into the car. It was pitch black, nothing around, couldn't see anything. And then all of a sudden we heard this roar. And it was such a loud roar that it was vibrating my chest. And, in those smaller cars, they used to have a speaker in the front, just by the window, the older cars. It was vibrating that. And I told her, shut off the radio. It's vibrating. She said, the radio is off. And I said, we better get out of here. And it was such a loud, and my chest was vibrating from this hell of a roar. So that was my first experience. I don't know what it was. I don't think it was a bear. There's no way it could have been a bear. I'm pretty sure it was a Bigfoot. And then I researched that area and later on found that there was sightings around that area. My second one was in the late 1980s. I used to go hunting up, I'm not going to tell you where, but we used to go up hunting, a bunch of us guys, and we had a cabin up there, and we come out in the morning. There was just fresh snow on the ground, about 2 inches of snow, and I seen these tracks, and these tracks crossed the field, and I'm wondering, holy geez, no, there's 15 inches long, these tracks. I'm going, geez, that's kind of weird. So I look across the field for where these tracks were, and something was watching me behind the trees. I could see it behind the trees. And then when I started to step forward, it took off just like a bird would take off, so fast. And then I could hear it thumping on the ground, running. And I could hear it run, and thump, 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 thump as it was running. So I went and I started following the tracks. I had a rifle with me, so I wasn't scared or nothing. I didn't plan on shooting it, that's for sure. But I was curious. So then I started seeing the tracks. And the tracks were, and like I was physically fit back then. I could, do just anything about track or field. It was making larger leaps than I could do. I tried to recreate their leaps, but it was like a 10-foot leap from 1 foot to the next foot to the next foot. And then it got down to the end of to a tree line. And then there was footprints there, but then it vanished. There was a creek there, but it was all, branches were all cut in. And the tracks just vanished right there. It was like snow on the ground, but I couldn't see any tracks anywhere around. I went all the way around, and it was like it just vanished. And I'm going, how could that be? You could see the tracks of it where it was running, but then it came to a spot, and it just sort of vanished, which was kind of weird. And you seen the tracks, and there's no way it could have went anywhere. They couldn't have climbed a tree because there's no trees that were near it because it was down a trail where it was running. That was a weird one.
Yeah.
I couldn't. And then the next time, similar spot, just about a mile further in the bush. It was muddy. It was very muddy. So all of a sudden I seen these tracks, and that was back in the 2000s. And I forgot my camera at the time to take pictures of deer if we got any deer. There was tracks in the mud that went down about 8 inches to a foot. And it was deep. It was walking in a certain way. So the reason how I know how Bigfoot walks is they walk 1 foot in front of the other. They don't walk like humans. They do not. They walk 1 foot in front of the other. And what I seen in the mud, and I walked beside the mud to make sure there was no other tracks around, that I only went in about 2 inches, maybe 2 inches. So whatever this was really heavy to go in at least 10 inches or more. I was astounded. I got the hunting buddies, and they all took a look at it, and they said, holy geez, well, but a lot of us, we didn't bring cameras back then. We just, that was another one. And then the first exact sighting, I was below Sudbury, Ontario, in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And I was fishing on a lake, a remote lake that's about a half an hour drive from the main highway. And it was a hot day. It was in September. And I was fishing, and I looked up, and I seen this black thing. And this thing is looking at me, and it's all black. And I'm wondering, that's weird. It's got to be like 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Why would somebody be wearing a jacket or something that when it's this hot? It was like extremely hot for September. And so I got the binos from the boat, and I was looking, and all of a sudden I seen the face and the body and the hair and everything, and it was like I was disappointed at the face. It was a juvenile. It was about 6 feet tall. I was disappointed in the face, and I'm thinking, like the face behind you, it would look like. No, it didn't look like that. It had like those BC totem poles that you see in the hiders, where they have the oval mouth, big oval mouth. Well, that's what it had. It had a big oval mouth like that. I'm going, well, that's kind of weird. It had little furry hair on top of its head, and like it did, but a big O mouth, like those totem poles that I've seen. I'm going, I was expecting something like this that's behind you, but no, that was kind of weird. So I monitored it for and I was about 200 yards from the creature with the binos. And I watched it until it just walked away into the bush. I think it was heading down to the water to get a drink because it was very hot that day. So those are my experiences.
So incredible. I want to comment on that last one. Literally earlier today and last night, I've been having this internal thought where it's like, okay, so if you've got all these carvings of the Sasquatch faces with the lips that look like they're whistling, why aren't witnesses saying that they're seeing that?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It was kind of messing with me. And this is important because you're the first person in 5 years that has told me that what I saw looked exactly what's on those totem poles.
Yeah, that's what
that is huge.
Yeah, it kind of really blew me away. I was kind of disappointed, but that big oval mouth, I was wondering, and it wasn't that tall. It was about 6 feet. It wasn't huge, but it was covered in fur. And the only reason I figured it was down there was to get a drink of water because it was very hot that day.
My goodness. What you saw so in the carvings, the lips are usually pretty big. Was the mouth pretty big as well? Or?
Yeah, the mouth was big oval. And I was going, this is weird. Like, it's not like the one behind you. It was like an oval mouth. And I'm going, well, it can't be a mask. It can't be somebody putting on something. And I'm going, who would do that? With this being that hot.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right. And I was in the middle of nowhere. So basically, half an hour drive and there was nobody around. Like, it's a remote lake.
It's fascinating stuff. Do you remember the shape of its head at all?
The head was kind of roundish, but
okay.
But I could tell it was juvenile. It wasn't that big. Yeah. But it was on the rocks. I wanted to go explore to see the footprints, but it was on rocks at the time when I seen it, and I didn't see any footprints when I went over there to go check it out after. But it was looking at me as I was looking at you, because he must have been astounded by me, and I was astounded by him because I've never seen something like that with an oval mouth, and I'm thinking, wow, that doesn't look like a real Bigfoot like you see on the pictures that you see on the internet.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess the question is, what is real? Is it all these pictures we're seeing on the internet, or is it what's been captured in things like totem poles from years past, and it's something to think about, and your story backs it up. So it's very cool. Thank you for coming up.
Anytime. Thanks.
Good stuff. Oh my goodness, that was incredible. Hey Kent, how are you?
How you doing?
Hey, doing good. Feel free to share what you've come up to share.
My first one, I was really, really, really young. So I can't even substantiate if it was real or not. but it was in Putney, Vermont.
Oh, snap. Really?
Yeah, and back in my day, you used to be able to like stuff kids in the back of the station wagon, and that's what we were doing when we were camping. The adults were in the trailer, the teens were in tents, and the little ones were locked inside the back of the station wagons and the back seat. I woke up early morning, like 4:35. You know that blue kind of dawn, dusky kind of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my head was towards the back of the station wagon, and when I woke up, there was something with a face looking down at me.
No way.
Yeah, I was probably 7/maybe 8 years old.
Oh, my goodness. What year was this, Kent?
We're talking maybe 82.
Oh, my goodness. So, do you know where Northfield is in Mass?
Northfield?
Yeah.
Not exactly.
Do you
I live
know?
in Connecticut, so I drive
Oh,
through
okay.
Mass all
Okay.
the time.
So, I grew up about half an hour south of where you're talking. So, I'm very familiar with the area.
Okay, so you're up like Greenfield area or
Yeah, it's like 15 minutes north of Greenfield. Yep.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow. Do
very
you
very.
remember? Go ahead.
No, I was just saying how it's a nice wooded area, and I mean people don't think the East Coast has a lot of them, but they do
Absolutely.
because
Um,
we have the Appalachian Trail.
yeah, yeah, it's a great area. Do you remember any details about what you saw in that face that was so close to you?
Strangely enough, I could sketch it out for you, but this is the strange thing. Do you know that guy up in Canada who everybody
Todd Standing.
possibly? Yes, there you go.
Yeah, yeah,
You know the one Bigfoot that's it has a very flat looking face and it's like a
yep.
tan color.
Yes, I do exactly know what you're talking about.
That exact Bigfoot is what I saw.
Wow.
So when I actually ever came across that footage on the internet, I was like, oh my god, that was it. It was identical.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. That's wild. I've never heard of any sightings by Putney or Brattleboro or that whole area. That is really cool.
Yeah.
Um, did anyone else in the car see it as well?
No. No, my cousin
Wow.
was with me, and my other cousin was in the middle seat, and they just. I think my cousin Dave woke up when I kind of like didn't scream, but I like really like jumped like to like get away from the window.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So that and you were young, so that must have affected you pretty wild.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, for many years until I had like other encounters with. I've never seen one again, but there's been the knocking and because I'm an avid camper and hunter and stuff, so the other signs are there, but that was I would call that like they call it a class A.
Oh yeah,
Class
I mean
A site.
absolutely 100%. Yeah.
And I'd love to see it
Um
again, but that's it's just like you want to, but then you don't want to.
sure. Yeah. Where were you experiencing wood knocks?
That was when we camped up in Newfane, Vermont.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
Yep.
That's awesome.
That was
That
actually my same cousin was there again. We were much older now. This is like when we were adults, and neither one of us could go to sleep in our tents because we talked about it the morning over coffee. We thought it was like deer fighting in the woods,
oh my goodness. Dude,
but
I'll tell
now
you what. I've only heard from people from Vermont 2 times in 5 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's very rare. It's
Yeah.
extremely rare.
And then the my third and final one so far, up in Vermont anyway, because it
Hmm.
seems like when they let you see that, or like when they let you see or acknowledge them, they kind of mark you, so you're prone to
Right.
have more sightings or
Exactly.
more experiences. So my last one in Vermont, we were again camping, and everybody had retired. It was probably about 2:30 a.m. in Newpane, and my wife's best friend was on a blow-up mattress by the fire, and I was sitting on the picnic table, like like my butt on the top of the table, and like just watching the fire, keeping it going. And out of the woods, there was like it was like right upon us, and it was like three big like exhale blows, like something kind of like what a deer would do. But
Yep.
like I
Yep.
said, I'm a hunter, and I've been blown at by a doe before, and it's not the same. So I jumped down off the picnic table. I grabbed her out of a dead sleep, and I yanked her up onto the picnic table with me, and she got to hear the three blows again with her own ears. And then nothing left, nothing. We couldn't hear nothing move away. It was silent. It was like not like a bear or a moose circling camp. It was just that instance, and it was done and over with.
My goodness. That's intense. The area I do get stuff from is do you know Glastonbury Mountain?
Oh yeah, that's a hot spot. The triangle.
Oh yeah. I've gotten, yeah, exactly, Bennington Triangle. I've gotten one, I'm up to three different things. Actually, two different um, people contacting me now for Glastonbury. It's pretty wild, but that's just west of where you're talking about,
Yeah.
kind of. But
Well, where my father-in-law's land was, where we camped on Newfane, it was a dead-end road with like four, five, six properties, and then there was this. I guess you would kind of call it like a outdoorsy camp or something. It was called the Manitoba Project or something. And I think it's
okay,
still there. It's just like for people to get out in the woods and enjoy nature. We experienced like rock stacking. You wake up in the morning and there's four or five rocks on top of each other. It's like, what the heck?
man, that's wild. Oh my goodness, Kent, I'm so glad you came up and shared. There's, as I said, there's not a lot of info about Vermont. This is good stuff. Oh, what years were the Newfane incidents in?
I have it written down at home. It was probably like 94, 93.
Okay, that's
Oddly
crazy.
enough, the one where I pulled my wife's best friend up on the picnic table, that was actually 4th of July weekend.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's wild, man. Dude, thank you so much for coming up.
Yeah,
I
no
appreciate you
problem.
sharing. Good
Yeah, I
stuff.
listen all the time, so keep it coming.
Appreciate that. You got
Thank
it.
you. Bye.
Dude, that's so cool. I love New England stuff because I don't hear it a lot. Yeah, Metro, how's it going?
It's all right. So, long story short, when I was a kid, I got in trouble, and they put me in a boys like program. It, if you live in Florida, it's on the north side of the Okeechobee River, out in the middle of nowhere. Seminole and Miccosukee Indians like kind of ran it, and you had to stay there for 3 months. And at the end of those 3 months, they sent you out on something called a solo. You ride blindfolded on the back of a four-wheeler out into the Okeechobee wilderness, and you have to survive for 3 days and 3 nights. So I'm on there on my second day, and I start to smell like dead flesh, like roadkill, kind of like, you know what, like decaying flesh, like an animal that got ran over. I start smelling that at night, and at the daytime I would get up and try to look for the carcass or whatever that smell was, and I could never find nothing. So on the third night of my solo, I smelt that smell again. Like, I don't know what time it was, but it was in the middle of the night. I had a little campfire going where I was camped out at. Like I said, that smell. And where I camped at, there was a canal. And I heard something step around my tent, kick my fire, like grunt because it burnt its foot, and ran off, jumped in the canal, climbed up the other side of the bank, and you could just hear it running through the wouldn't say swampland, I guess. Like, it would splash in it, like it wasn't like a 4-footed animal. It sounded like a big human being, like, running through swampland. And that's my story.
Oh my goodness, that is really, really intense. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for coming up, man, and thank you for the support as well. I really appreciate it.
All right, I appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Man, oh my goodness, the hits keep on coming. Hey, Dustin, how's it going?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Feel free to share what you have come up to share tonight.
Okay. I'm from northern BC, Canada.
Yep.
My people have only been contacted. The town I live in is only 56 years old. So we have some really old stories that our people, I'm Haisla, we're people of the snow. So I have a lot of stories, like knowledge that has been passed down to me. So my grandmother had told me about many different species of Sasquatch, and you guys were talking about the oval mouth, and those are basically the juvenile Sasquatch. They change as they get bigger, hey? So in our stories, we have the oval mouths as well, and we also have red hair. We call it Bigfoot. They're like wild men.
Right.
Then there's also the wild men, like people go overboard, and when they get to the shoreline, they're supposed to hug a tree, and that regrounds you to Mother Earth, so you don't lose your mind, and that's how they get wild. Some people get wild in that manner. Then we have little tiny, we call them quaggios. They're like another ape-like creature that's probably about knee height, and they're like more like little spider monkeys with really sharp claws, and they're hairy. They look like little monkeys. The story I'm going to tell you is when first contact happened to my people in the early 1800s. The Hudson Bay Trading Company was around our area, first starting to open up, and the Queen's Guards were really after all the black bear fur for their hats. So they gave our people our first rifles. We went out, there's this one guy, they were going goat hunting, and they went to this one part where I'm from, it's called Camano, and they went up to the rock, and he took a left, the other Heislas went up to the right, and we used to put sticks down. That way, if you went out hunting and you got your catch, you would come back to your canoe, and you'd lay your stick down, saying you got out safely. The last two had to stay and wait until each got out, so they'd be able to notify if anybody got hurt and never came back to the checkpoints. So this man took the left trail going up to the goat, and he got to the salmonberry patch where he saw this black bear, and he took out his weapon and he lined it up, and he unalived the thing. As he stood up, he was going to go get his catch. Three big Sasquatch stood up, and they looked over at him, and he froze. He dropped his firearm. He ended up urinating on his firearm. He was so scared, and he spoke in our language, saying, I'm sorry. I did not know you guys were wuss. I thought you were a black bear," trying to apologize in the Awikula language. So those things looked at him, and they were shocked. And keep in mind, the Hudson Bay Company had just came here in the 1800s, and these are probably the first cracks of a rifle that they've ever heard around the whole territory. So those things looked down. They looked at the man. They looked back at their fallen Sasquatch. And my grandfather told me they grabbed him by the wrists and the ankles, and they swung him kind of like a swinging rope. And they lifted the Sasquatch went in the air, and the body fell and hit the ground. And they looked at the man again, and he was scared. He's still talking in our language. And they went and did that 3 times, grabbed him by the ankles and the wrists, and they flung him up in the air. And on the 3rd time, they looked at the man. I'm keeping his name out of the story because you're going to share it after. But in the Kitlope where I'm from, it's like a lot of bedrock that comes straight out of the biggest fjord in the world. So it's like a lot of vertical rocks. And we had trained mountain climbers that would actually go out and goat hunting and stuff like that. So he was an experienced goat hunter, meaning he was able to climb the highest rocks that there were. Well, there's this one rock that was so ovoid shaped that nobody could actually get leverage on and climb. It was like a big oval boulder that was there. Billy Hall, that was his name, Billy Hall. He went running all the way down the trail. These things were chasing him from behind. Their arms lifted up like spider monkeys, and they went side to side, and they were stepping. And he went running to that thing. He blacked out. His adrenaline was going so much that when he came to, he was on top of that rock that no one was able to climb. And those arms were dangling just at the top of that rock. And he turned around, and where he could slide off the rock and continue to run, that's where his canoe was. So he took a chance and he slid down the rock, and he went running all the way down the trail, and he got onto the back end of his canoe. And these are big cedar canoes that they used to go. So launching that's not like launching a modern canoe. He grabbed that back end of the canoe, and he went running out into the water, and he hopped in and started taking his canoe paddle and paddling. Well, he heard splashes going behind him, and he started paddling as fast as he could. The adrenaline hit him really, really good. He started paddling really hard, and he got out deep enough because it's the biggest fjord, so it gets really deep. He was confident enough to turn around, and those things went into the water up to their chest, and their arms were out like spider monkeys still, and they were making whooping noises at him. When he came back to the village, he told the story. There's one part I forgot out. While he was on top of that rock, he looked up to where that other fallen Sasquatch was. And behind this tree peeked out this big, giant, pure white Sasquatch, like a huge one. He said was like 3 times as big as those other ones. So my grandmother also said there's a different species. Like there's ones that live on alpine that no human could live up there because there's not enough oxygen. But these great apes can live up there. And that's what they think that these species here were. So when he got home, he told the village what had happened. And he was a carver, a master carver. So he carved out the mask, and it had the lips that you guys are talking about on the totem poles. Like that's a region I'm from, is inland from Haida Gwaii, I guess, if you guys know where that is. So he had those really big lips. Then he paddled out the next day, and he went to the rock, and he carved the 3 faces of those juveniles that were there. And those in the rock today, you can see those big lips that are still there, the circle ones. When he went back home, he went into a coma. And back then, going into a coma was quite different than today with life support and stuff like that. But we have bull kelp. They cut off the top of a bull kelp, and the bottom is like a cow's whip, but it's hollow. So they cut that off. They were able to insert that down into his stomach, and they kept on feeding him bone broth. He was in the coma for an entire year because he was such in shock of what he just saw and what had just happened. And these things, sometimes they say they're mythical. I'm not too sure if people have mentioned portals and 0-point energy, those types of things yet. Well, we have similar stories to those types of portals, those types of beings. Like there's many different types of these species of these wild things, eh? So he woke up a year after, and when he got his strength back, he went back out into the community. And he was actually, when he shook people's hands, we have a word, it's called Dadukiwi. It means to be able to see many different things that the waking world can't. right? So it's like special types of psychic abilities. He would shake people's hands, and he would like picture that when they passed away, how long they would live. He would be able to.
Oh my goodness.
When he got really old, he was in his bed. They all gathered around, and he made one last prediction. He said, "You see that mountain over there? One day there's going to be this big giant worm, and it's going to eat its way down through the mountain." And they thought he was losing his mind at that time, because how could this big giant worm eat its way through bedrock, like right through a mountain? Well, that's where they built a dam, and his prediction came true. Years later, they had this big giant, those tunnel building machines they bore through.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what they used, and he passed away, and his predictions came true. So they do have an element of magic as well. And there's other stories older that they used to live with us, and we used to live with all of these in harmony. Like in my territory, one Sasquatch, I guess you'd have to call it a cub at that point, a child, was adopted by a family, but the thing was so wild, and it loved its mother that adopted it, but it was really violent to other people in the village. So she isolated in this cove around Bishop Bay. It's a hot springs around here. And she raised this child there that was like hers. So,
oh my goodness. Just so I get a feel for the area. So is this right underneath where the tip of Southeast Alaska is?
Kitimat, BC. And then if you go out,
got it.
Like what I would suggest for you to do is something like Google Maps, and you'd be able to pin everybody's stories and like translate them on there. I've done that for.
Oh, I have it.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Yeah, out there, they're like we have stories. We have trapper cabins that are still available for people to go out trapping, and they go into the cabins, but all these rocks get bashed. So I run culture camps, and I reintroduce our culture to our youth. So we were out at Weewani Hot Springs for a couple weeks, and we have little clinkers to sing our ancestral songs. They're Devil's Club sticks, and we hit them together, kind of like, and use our drums at the same time. We stopped. All of us were out in probably 16 youth and about 5 camp counselors. Right when we stopped drumming and hitting, we heard tree knocking and stuff, and the kids were looking at me, and they knew what it was because we talked about the Sasquatch already. We let them know the wuss is around, and they were like, "Well, what are they doing? Why are they hitting the trees?" And I said, "Well, we're hitting our sticks." I said, "It probably called them in. We're the only sound from here to like 100 miles that way. Like we were way out in an isolated camp." So that night, all the kids were creeped out. We stayed up a bit late, and we let the fire burn out. They went into their camps. I had the trapper's cabin. I'm not even joking. We put the electric fence and stuff on, but I had this little overhanging cliff on the left side of mine that the electric fence went under that cliff, the height of that cliff. It was not a big cliff. It was only like 7 feet high. But right on my trapper's cabin, I swear I felt 2 feet land just outside the wall. And I was so creeped out. The window was there. And I went and put a towel over the window. Because in our stories, they sometimes peek in, and they put their faces right up to the window and they peek in. And I was not ready to see that. So the next morning, where we had our canoes and the tide was coming up rapidly, we went out to where the canoes were. We followed these feet prints straight out there. And right where this mud spot was, there's probably like a 14 to 16 inch footprint. And as the tide was coming in, we did get a picture of it too. My sister, I'd have to ask her for it. But you could see the water pooling into it. And then when the tide went out, they were all gone. Eh?
Wow. Oh my goodness. This is some really incredible stuff. And thank you for sharing stories that are so special to your culture. I mean, it's just wild. Yeah, absolutely wild stuff.
Different ones shapeshift, all different types of shapeshifters, like ottermen. They shapeshift into these big human beings. The halibut shapeshifter that gifted us our halibut hooks. We have stories of cave bears that we fought off that go back to about 40,000 years ago.
No way. Oh my goodness, dude. Can you send me an email? I would love to have contact with you outside of this platform. So maybe we could have another conversation someday. Um, my email is bigfootsociety@gmail.com.
Okay.
Wow. That's cave bear stories. That's really cool.
So the one thing I forgot to say is those humans that go overboard and they turn wild.
Right.
So they went out on canoes. They actually mourned that these people, they found their canoes topsided, like flipped over in rough weather. So they assumed that they passed on. So they would mourn their death, but their wives would always, and there's 3 different stories that I could talk about, but the one actually where they brought the person back to like be a human, this creature would go up and peek in at his wife's window, and she would look over and see this dark furry face. Like this thing was just like hideous. She would scream. This is before phones or anything like that. She called her brothers. They had modern rifles at that time. This is still the first introduction of those things. They chased it off, but it kept coming back every few nights. So what they did, the old lady told them they think it's that person's husband. They're coming back to peek at his wife. They're in love. And what would happen, they dug a big trap in front of the window, a hole down, and they put a whole bunch of rocks in there. And then they filled it up with water, and then they covered it with sticks and stuff. So when this went up to the window, they heard it crash down in there, and then the braid came out, and we have a root. It's a really powerful medicine for our people. And they held him down. They rubbed him with this root, and he started talking English again. And he was like, keep going, keep going. And they were dunking him under the water, bathing him with this root. It's like a spirit bath that we would have to pull our people back into like human consciousness. He had stories of actually going over 2 to 3 mountains in one day like it was nothing. But now that he's back to being a human, he couldn't even fathom going over 1 mountain again. So
Oh my goodness.
There was a cannery out here too, and I worked in archives for our community. And that happened to a Japanese fisherman. And his brother heard about it in Japan, that his brother fell overboard, and they saw this wild person coming out of the water walking up, and they look like Sasquatch too, right? And in their ancestry, they have the same story that the Haisla people have about them going wild. So the guy came over from Japan, and he said, that's my brother. I want you guys to, when they come up, pull out your rifle and, get him. So when he came out next time, that's what they did. And he said, now come watch this. I'm going to pull back his lips, and you'll see that gold tooth that he has. And that's how he knew that that was his brother. And we have this in our archives documented still. So crossed by the Pacific, these 2 background ancestries. So now you go through the different locations that you're talking about and imagine all the different species. So let's talk about the black bear. In our territory, we have 3 different species of black bear, and people think that there's just one. But if you go across the whole Americas, there's many different types of subspecies of different animals. So,
right.
I think a lot of people don't think they see the dog man. I heard this one. Yeah. We're talking about it being an orangutan type of Bigfoot. And since the orangutan's faces look like that, you would naturally just think it was a werewolf or something. So associating it with the dog. But those ones are like flesh eaters, eh? So you'd find those ones around cave systems and stuff like that.
You had mentioned that there's stories in your culture about portal usage.
Yeah, there's a lot. So what ley lines are in modern day research is basically animals will go over them. They're in a visible energy grid that travels the world, and this is how different animals migrate. Well,
right. Whoa, what?
When 2 ley lines overcross each other, that creates 0 point energy in physics. This is actually like proven. Like that's where you would find 0 point energy. So those are places where they're able to come in and out of the different spectrum, I guess. So we have one story of the Kitlope, like we have glacial water where we are, milky blue, and an alligator popping out of one of these portals. And our people
No
not
way.
even recognizing it until modern time. The pictures get passed down to whatever creature it was. We even have like shape-shifting ravens that were around here that shaped our land. Our ancestry is so rich in these types of stories. Like I can go on for the majority of the night.
It's incredible the amount of knowledge that you have is so cool. And like this, the wild thing is like this is not anything that you can read in a book. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I'm really lucky. I was raised, my grandfather's. So when contact happened here, my mom's appendix burst when she was a baby, and these helicopters came in because they had to boat across to the nearest town. These helicopters came in, and my great grandmother pulled out her cane and was trying to fight off this giant dragonfly that was coming.
Oh my
And it was
goodness,
like
that is
normal.
awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, we're probably the last 3 nations contacted throughout all of BC just because of our location. So we still have a lot of these types of stories in this area. Eh?
That's incredible. What year was contact for you guys about?
The early 1800s, so probably
Oh, okay,
around.
right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, so you could imagine how much we still have within that, and people think that BC is still really young. Even Canada's young. Canada's only 300 years old, they say.
Sure, absolutely.
Our stories outlast all of those. Eh? There's even we have the Kwakiwa. They call it the Dunaqua, and she's another one with big lips, and it's a cannibal lady, the cedar basket lady.
Yep.
We call it Tokamala. So in my research between surrounding nations, we all have this entity, and a lot of people actually think that that's the mother of lots of Sasquatch. And she would come around, but she has really poor eyesight, and she would chew tree sap like gum, and she would smack her lips going, and that would lure the children around where they would go play in the summer in the water. She had this big cane because she was an old lady, and she would, as the kids went to investigate what it was, she would grab her cane, scoop them in, grab them with her big hands, put them over her head and right into the cedar backpack, and then she would walk home, and apparently that was her diet. But many different, one of our nations around, like my neighboring nations, they have the same story in their language. So my people can't talk to my neighbors. Our dialect is different, and we were all broken up throughout BC, but we all have these stories. Like Sasquatch actually comes from the Kootenays area and Lillooet, and it's Sasquatch, and that's where it comes from.
My goodness. Oh my goodness. This is one of the coolest conversations I've had on this platform. Thank you so much, Dustin, for coming up and for chatting for a while. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. I'll let other people talk, and I'll send you an email tomorrow. I wrote that down.
Okay. Thank you so much. We'll talk later. Thank you, Dustin.
Yeah.
Man, that was really cool. That was extremely cool. Wow. Hey, Johnny, how are you?
Very blessed today.
Yes, Pennsylvania
But-
definitely counts. Feel free to share what you've experienced.
So back in 2020, me and my son went hunting on private property, and we were up kicking some deer out from my brother who was down below us, and we got to the top of this hill, and as we were getting up there, we were just brushing through the daggers, and we got pretty thick into it, and my son came across this hut. That's all I can say is it's a hut. This thing had to be, gosh, at least 14 foot high and almost 20 foot around. It was huge. My son looked at it and he says, "Hey, Dad," he says, "it really smells over here." I was like, well, at the time I had a pretty bad nasal thing going on. And I said, I can't smell nothing. So the son, he was over there looking all around that hut. And then next thing you know, he got down into the valley. He says, "Holy smokes, Dad." He said, "There's a big hole in the bottom of this hut." He says, "It's too high. I can't crawl into it." I says, "Well, I don't know what's down there." And I said, "You said it smells bad." I said, "Best thing to do is just come on back up here with me." So he'd come back up on top of the hill. And at the time, I was still smoking cigarettes. And I said, "Let's just have a cigarette and think about it." As we're sitting in the field, it went down into that valley. The hut was on our left-hand side. And then come up onto a big valley on the other side, a big hill. Well, my son looked over and he seen this big black, I thought it was a bear. I really thought it was a bear, but we're in Pennsylvania and we're hunting that. There was no sighting of bear. He says, "Dad," he says, "what is that?" And I said, "I don't know." I said, "You take my gun," which had a scope on it. I says, "I got a pair of binoculars in my hunting outfit." I said, "Let me dig that out." I said, "Meanwhile, keep that scope on them so this way we can keep an eye on it." So he's sitting there pointing the scope at it, and I'm trying to look for my binoculars through all these doggone pockets I had because, I had thermal underwear, thermal shirt, thermal everything else. And finally, I found the binoculars. He turned, looked at me, took the scope off of it, and he said, "John, Dad, did you find them there binoculars?" I said, "Yeah." We both looked, and this black thing jumped over the hill. I said, I don't know what that was. He said, "But Dad," he says, it was quick. It moved. I said, "It was big." So the rest of that day, we didn't see no deer at all. And we were coming down off of the hill. And as we're coming down off of the hill, we sit down for a second and smoking a cigarette. And he said, "Dad," he says, "that smell's back." And I was like, I didn't see nothing. I didn't hear anything. Keep walking back down the quad trail. Next thing you know, a rock flies over my head. It landed on the path in front of me. I said, "What the hell did you throw a rock at me for?" He said, "Dad, that wasn't me." He said, "Man, I don't know where that come from." And then we heard a grunt. And I've heard deer grunt. This was nothing like that. It was really odd. Kind of scared me. So I said, "Let's just sit down, relax a minute." And we heard something over on our right-hand side. And it sounded like somebody dropped a tree into the brush. And we waited. We didn't hear nothing. We didn't see nothing. My brother jumps on the radio and says, "Hey, where you guys at? Come on down." And when me and my son stood up, this thing took off up over top of the hill. We couldn't see it, but we heard it. And my brother was like 200 yards away down on the bottom of the hill. And he says, "What in the world was that?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "I couldn't hear it, or I couldn't see it." And my son says, "I couldn't see it either." And that was 200 yards away he heard that. So we didn't know what it was. Next year we come hunting back there. That land is marked. It's all private property now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we went 2 valleys over where we had another private spot that we went to. We're down there and there's all these trees pushed across all the quad trails. Big trees. We couldn't figure that one out. And then me and my son, we took a long walk out on this ridge, and we started walking the ridge back. And halfway back, there's a shooting range that's like 500 yards away from us. And they're still firing bullets and everything else. And as we're walking back, we clearly heard. And I said, what the hell was that? He said, Dad, he says, that was a whistle. And we're walking back, and it did it again. It whistled. I mean, there's no orange anywhere around us. We couldn't find a hunter nowhere around us. And then the rest of that day, things were being thrown at us. We couldn't figure it out. So we just marked it down as another weird experience for that year. That was 2021.
Okay.
In 2003, we were hunting on another hillside, and there was stacked rocks up on top of this hill. I was like, who in their right mind is going to come climbing to the top of this mountain and stack rocks? And it was just the weirdest thing. We didn't get to see no deer that day, and that's when we heard another grunt, and I said, yeah, we're done. So we left. When was the next one? Gosh, there was like 6 experiences we had. So that was 2021, and then 2022 we didn't go nowhere, and it was 2004. I think me and you, we were driving up the road. We were spotting for deer. And we were coming down this holla in Pennsylvania. It's called a holla. And we were spotting deer, and the wife's on the right-hand side. I'm on the left-hand side. There's a real steep hill on the left-hand side. And as we're going down the road, she spots these deer. And these deer, they're not looking at the light. They're looking up the hill. And she said, what are they looking at? I said, I don't know. Give me the light. And I looked over on the other side. Dude, I'm telling you what, it was like 7 foot high, and it had red eyes. And I said, does everybody else see this? My son looked over, and my wife looked over, and they said, well, what has red eyes? I said, an owl? I says, I think an owl has red eyes, but they're not like 7 inches apart.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It was weird. So we went down the road, we turned around, and we come back. And we're like driving super, super slow. And by then, them deer are gone. And we look back up on that hill, and we're waiting, and we're looking. Next thing I know, pow, a rock hits the back of the car. I was like, what the heck was that? My wife says, I don't know, but it hit the back of the car. Drove up just a little bit more, pow, another rock hit the door. And both of them dents are still in that vehicle today. So I said, I don't care what it is, we're out of here. We drove, we took off. So we were coming back from shopping one day, and I was saying, and I said, it was right up on the hills where we saw them creatures, their red eyes. Holy smokes. The one I saw was standing up on a flat behind all these trees. I'll bet you it had to be 10 foot tall. My wife seen one standing on the other hillside. I wasn't even looking at that one. And she said, what did you say? That thing looked like a refrigerator, you said? Or a Volkswagen. Yeah. So it looked like a Volkswagen standing up. It was just huge. And me, myself, I'm driving, trying to look at it, and trying to be safe so I didn't hit anything. And we're coming across the bridge, and I looked at her, and she looked at me. We both had that same thing. And she goes, did you see what I seen? I was like, well, I seen a figure up on top of the hill. And she goes, I seen a figure standing between them poles. And until this day, we keep driving past her. We keep looking up on the hill. We never seen him again. But wow, that was in 2004. In 2005, me and my
25.
grandson. Huh?
25, not 5.
Oh, 20. I'm sorry, dear. Anyways, 2006, I took my grandson hunting with me. So we're going down in this a different area, a little bit further away from where we were hunting, and we had permission to hunt on this property. And I was taking the grandson with me. I'm showing him how to hunt. Brand new, 15-year-old boy learning how to hunt, going with his pap. I set him on a tree, and I said, I'm going to go look over the hill. So I walk away from my grandson, and he's sitting there, and he calls me on the radio and says, Pap, there's a guy over here dressed in black. And he's looking at me. I said, what? I said, it's the first day of buck. He's got to have orange on. No, this guy's in black, and he's looking at me. I work my way back to the top of that hill. I get up there, and I just walk the crest of the hill. He goes, look, he's standing right there. And he says, he's gone. I was like, holy smoke. He says, Pap, I'm telling you. He said, this one was black, it was hairy, and it was about my size. I was like, wow, that was really weird. So, I don't know. The rest of that day, we kept hearing hoops. And he says, what is that? And I said, honest to God, I said, I don't know. And I said, I'm not going to scare you. I said, I think I know what it is. And we joked about it for the rest of the day. So we went back there like 3 days later, and we were walking the creek. And as we're down at the bottom of the creek, a rock come flying down beside us. And we looked up on the hill, and there's this, like a 6-foot triangle. And it was at the top of the hill. And I pulled his scope out because it had 3 to 9. I jacked it all the way up to 9, and I was looking on top of the hill, and I said, grandson, I said, whatever that is up there, I said, it's got hair. And he took the scope, and he looked up there, and he said, Pap, he says, that thing's moving. And as we both went to go look again, it was gone. So, whatever critters are living near us in Pennsylvania, they can stay there. We don't have a problem with them. They don't mess with us. But they do let us know they're there. And once we saw them that one day, I'll tell you what, there are Bigfoot. And since I've seen them, I can't say that, I can't believe, because it's real. Them critters are real.
Wow, that's some really wild stories. Did you say this is northeast Pennsylvania?
Yeah, it's actually right next to Ohio. So we'll put it that way. Because
so
I was
western
told
part.
If you tell a story, make sure you say it's in Pennsylvania. Don't tell where it's at, because if people go out and try to look for the critters, you know what I mean? I don't want that.
Oh, I get it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you you coming up and sharing what you've experienced over the years.
I appreciate that, man. You can go ahead and use everything I said, and that is not a problem. I have it all written down.
Thank you, Johnny. Have a good night.
You too, man.
All right, guys. I didn't know that tonight was going to be just as crazy as last night. I am going to actually call it a night because I am exhausted. But thank you so much, everyone, for hanging out. I know there's, for everyone who is still waiting, if you are wanting to share your account, you can send me an email right now at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Or make sure you're subscribed to this channel